Okay.
Let me go to Abuja. Njoko, yes, the not too young to run bill, there was that buzz around it. How well prepared are the youths to take on this giant stride?
Yeah, so the not too young to run for us, like we said, is not just about young people, but we are expecting young people with character, young people that have the competence and have what it takes to be leaders to come out to run. The biggest challenge in Nigerian politics is that over time, politics and people that come out for position is the only thing in Nigeria, the only job in Nigeria that nobody looks at if you have what it takes to be the leader. I mean, if you want to get a plumber in your house to do a plumbing work in your house, you will probably look for someone that has experience. If you want to fly an aeroplane, you don't expect to just go there and see a regular person. You need a pilot that has gone through education. But it's only in politics and governance that every person comes on board and just, give us the kind of leadership we have. So, not too young to run movement, which is why we have the Ready to Run initiative. We're already collecting, we're already reaching out to young people who have indicated interest to run for different political offices across the country to support them with capacity building. So you don't just go there because you feel it is cool for you to get into office, but you should equally understand that you're going there to serve, and you know the challenges that are there, that are within for you to go into political office to lead. So yes, and beyond the young people that are coming out to contest, which were expected people that have character are supposed to come out, the ball is not just in the hands of the movement. Yeah, the law is there right now, but it is in the hands of Nigerians now. So if a young man decides to come out from his community to run for a state house of assembly in his state, it is the people in his place that will decide who will lead them. So what the Not Too Young to Run bill, the law has done, is to open up the space for competitive politics. You understand? So yeah, for competitive politics. So people will have options. So at the end of the day, it is in the hands of the electorate, the Nigerians. And by the way, talking about the electorate and why this law is so right on time. The electorate, as it is as a 2015 election, the young people, based on INEC voter register, consisted 53% of accredited voters in the 2015 election. And then the population of the country, like we all know, everybody talks about it, the young people consider about 65% of the electorate. So if young people with character and content come out to contest the election, it's naturally expected that they will win. But then again, there's a bigger challenge. Yeah, the young man who I'm excited is running for office in Senate has mentioned some challenges around the cost of election, which is one of the demands we've made to the president, which is one of the demands we've made to political parties, because it's just beyond the signing of the bill. They need to reduce the cost of election. But then the major issue, the bigger issue in all of this is the internal party politics, especially of these big parties. So you see young people most times are stiffened when they come out to contest, because it's a different for the young man who is running for Senate to say, yeah, he's an aspirant. But the bigger challenge is from you to move from being an aspirant to being a candidate. And that is where the internal party politics comes into play. So we urge Mr. President, the day he signed the bill, to equally ensure that his party, the ruling party as it is right now, ensures that internal Democratic Party politics happens, especially the way they run their party primaries, because that is where most people lose out again. But then there is equally good news for young people, because even if they don't get it at that level of the big parties, you can also get it under the 68 political parties right now. This Not Too Young to Run bill had a sister that was going along with it. The independent candidacy was going along with it. But sadly, when this law got to the states, it was just about 8 states that voted for the independent candidacy. So I've had arguments, people saying that, hey, we didn't get independent candidacy, so how are we supposed to get into office? But the good news is there are 68 political parties out there. And I tell young Nigerians, if you think you have character, you have content, and you are popular, because politics is local, if you think you are popular enough to win an election if the independent candidacy pull through, if you think you are popular enough to win election as an independent candidate, you can equally win the election under any other political party beyond the 2 big political parties where we have issues of genuine internal party politics. So we are calling on the big parties to ensure, beyond just giving quota to young people, beyond cutting the cost of nomination forms, because to what good is it, even if they reduce the cost of nomination forms for young people, and yet the internal party politics, the primary party elections are not democratic. So that is the major key thing. Even if, and I'm talking about funding. So when young people talk about funding and how they don't have the money to run for elections, I tell them, Mr. President, as it is right now, he has run presidential election 3 times before he won at the 4th time. He never had the money. In 2015, he even told us that he didn't have the money to buy the costly APC party nomination form that was 27 million or so. So when a young man indicates interest, and you think you are popular, you think you have character, you think you have content, election, as a matter of fact, is costly in itself, but it is hardly never done by yourself alone. That young man there talked about how he needs to raise 1,000 naira from people. So if you have character and you have content, and you come out and you declare interest that you want to run, and you want to move from being an aspirant to being a candidate, I can assure you that young Nigerians will come out and support you to achieve your dream.
Njoku, when you started, you spoke about if you want to give a job to a plumber, you look for one who has experience. Don't you think it would be a good idea for young people to actually start at the grassroots, cut their teeth at that level before they begin to aspire to higher offices?
So when we talk about experience, yes, and when you talk about grassroots, of course, there are lots of, now, because the Ready to Run initiative, like I told you, we are collecting data of young people that are running for office. Majority, close to over 80% of the people that will have their data are contesting for State House of Assembly elections. I mean, that's grassroots. That's grassroots beyond the local government and councillorship elections, which we all know how that election happens. It's never democratic, it's never transparent, it's never credible. But talking about State Assembly elections, that is grassroots in itself. But when we talk about the presidency and someone, that you expect someone to run an election at 35, if you keep the age of someone to run for State Assembly at 35 or Senate at 35, at what point will the young man start to even have the experience to run for presidency at 35? But now the Not Too Young to Run law states that at 25, you can run for State House of Assembly, which most young people are going for. But then, so it gives them that room for that to get the experience and the intergenerational dialogue that is needed for them to run for the bigger office in the future. So, but talking about experience here is good in public office. But young people as well have experience. So you talk about civil society space in Nigeria. My colleague there in your Lagos studio is talking about how their NGO is one of the biggest in Nigeria. Yeah, he didn't just get to where he is right now. Most NGOs in Nigeria that are doing great and fantastic job in Nigeria are led by young people. These are young people who are managing funds and grants in hundreds and thousands of dollars, and sometimes in millions of dollars, and they are making serious impact across the nation. So why not? If they have experience to do that, why do you think they don't have the experience and the capacity to run for the president? I mean, the ones that have attained that level of experience. But for the people that are 25 years old, I've seen arguments on social media. People are saying, hey, the typical Nigerian young man at 25, 26 is probably graduating. I mean, that was before. Now we have young people at their 24. They already have PhDs within the country and across the globe. So why do you think they don't have what it takes for them to start making laws? So we need to raise the bar higher than it is right now for young people to get involved. And Not Too Young to Run bill, like I said, doesn't at any time seek to sack our elderly politicians in office, which is why one of the gains is for you to have that intergenerational dialogue, so that people, as they get in their lane, why they advance to the next step.
Okay. Njoku, when we come back from this break, we'll continue from where you have just stopped and bring in Kunle to tell us about how to measure this character and content of some of these young people. Do stay with us. Let me take this to Njoku. Whether we like it or not, we know that there are some of those youths who know that entitlement syndrome. If my father isn't giving me, the government has not given me, those ones are there. We also know that there are some of them who think, okay, Nigeria is just that big cake. Everybody's been eating it. Once I get there, I need to go and get my share. And that is the mindset. How do we change this kind of, psyche of people like that? Just so they know that when you're coming for service.
So first of all, you know what is faulty about the premise, what you just said now, referring to youth as people that think that way. And you said something earlier when they say, a lot of young people are irresponsible or act irresponsibly. I mean, that is a human thing, it's not a youth thing. Because equally, age and getting old doesn't guarantee being responsible. Because we have a lot of young people, a lot of old people who also are very responsible. And we have a lot of old people who also think that coming to leadership is about national cake for them to share. But then the issue here, like we keep emphasizing, is on the issue of character and content. So it's not everybody that that decides to come out to run for election and the people decide to support him. I mean, it should be about people that have character and content. So there will always be, that's a fact, there will always be those people who think the way you are saying. There will always be those people, those young people who are irresponsible. That makes the society a functional society. As a matter of fact, everybody cannot be like you or like me. I mean, that's how a functional society is supposed to be. But then we're talking about young people who have character. And then, just so that I put this point out there, so there's a lot of distraction going on around this bill that the president has signed into law. And I find the distraction a bit entertaining. But young people should focus on the real issues. I mean, it's entertaining for me seeing the big parties, the APC and the PDP, you know, I mean, trying to own the bill and say, hey, we did this, trying to own the bill or trying to use it to campaign. Young people should focus on the real issues, because it's not just cool for them to use it to campaign for elections, but it is for us, young people, to focus on the real issues, which is participation in the electoral processes. How many young people watching us this morning have their PVCs? So you see young people telling you that, hey, if they have to go and register, they spend 2 hours for them to register before they can. I mean, but you spend more hours doing other things, watching movies. Why don't you make effort to register to have your PVC? So all of these things will not amount to much impact and much effect and much support to the young people that will come out to run if the young people do not go out there and register to have their PVC, to have their PVC power. And then beyond that, INEC as an organization, which is equally one of the demands we give to Mr. President. Mr. President has to ensure that INEC gives us credible, free, and fair election in 2019. So our young people who will leave their job, who will leave what they are doing to contest, will not just be an effort in futility, but at the end of the day, to transit to results that they win elections if we have credible elections. So yes, to your question, it's not just about young people. Same happens with old people, but we're expecting young people that have character and content to come out and contest in 2019 and beyond. And then again, this bill. So most times we'll talk about this bill as if these laws are made just for now. Laws are not just made for today. Laws are made for the future. So this is law already in Nigeria. And even if we don't exactly, young people now, don't exactly get it right, or we don't see a reasonable amount of young people get into politics by 2019, because the timing, as a matter of fact, is short, which is the urgency we were talking to Mr. President to ensure that he signs. You know, we gave Mr. President an 8 days ultimatum on 21st before he signed this bill now. The urgency is that young people need to start participating, need to start the processes of election. So if by 2019 we don't see a lot of young people that's there to get into power.
Okay, Njoku, we'll just take a very quick break, and Sunrise will be back in a moment. Let me go to Njoku. For some young people watching us right now, and who have the same zeal, the same passion, and of course character and content that you mentioned earlier, but they don't know where to start from, what would you tell them?
First of all, most young people, as a matter of fact, they have that phobia of cost and money. And as I try to answer your question, let me say this. The Not Too Young to Run movement, which is a youth and civil society-led movement comprised of young people. And it's good for Nigerians to also know that across the 36 states of this country, we had young people who were coordinators, who organized day of actions, that's a march to national assemblies. These young people engaged all the 109 senators, all the 360 Federal House of Reps, all the 991 House of Assembly members. We are all reached out to. There were 2 national day of actions that we had in Abuja here, that people turned out in about 6, 7, 10,000 population. We did not need to meet any big man in quotes, to say, hey, give us money for this. Now, what do? We realize that our resource can be converted to power. And what is that resource that will convert it to power? The population of the young people. We looked at the population. We knew that this population, with the right organizing and with the proper right strategies, we can convert all of this to power, and which we can use to achieve what we've achieved. So the good news there for every young man who has that zeal to know is, hey, it is possible. If you really desire it, if you really wish it, and if you are local in your place, then it is possible. Start, and then you will see the resources will come out. And if people believe in you, even that resources you think you don't have, financial resources, will come out and it will be done. We literally taxed ourselves from our income and from our earnings to make all of this possible. So if we can do this across the country without the support of any big man, in quotes, big man I mean, without the support of any politicians, if we can do this, so why can't you do it? What is important is the resources of the young people that you have. With the right strategy, with the right consultation, with the right approach, you will be able to unseat the man who is representing you at the federal, at the state, and even your governors. And this is important for us to note. The future we are talking about is ours to own. Yeah, I'm less than 35, and we're talking about future. The future is me for my kids, because who will be alive in that future? Some of the people that are representing you, I'm not wishing any person bad, but they're probably old enough not to even be in the very nearest future, because naturally
thank
people
you,
get old.
Njoko, thank you so much. Thank you.